Well, greetings to you and thank you so much for staying with us on UCTV. My name is Nora Sende. On this weekend edition, it is the 4th of May, 2025. We thank you for watching us wherever you're watching us from. Well, on Thursday, we celebrated the International Labour Day. That was actually celebrated in Nakapiripirit district with so much attendance and so much going on, really. In honor of the International Labour Day, we want to discuss issues that really affect Ugandans. Now, today's topic is basically going to be about the true worth of work, confronting the cost of living and the crisis of wages in Uganda. The crisis of wages in Uganda is a topic that has gone on forever. But I am so glad that today in studio I have a gentleman who has massive experience when it comes to workers, and I have none other than Usher Wilson Owere, who is also Chief Labor Affairs, External Labor Powerhouse. He is the Emeritus of NOTU. He's the Emeritus Chairman of NOTU. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for hosting me. First of all, my name is Asha Wilson Owere, Chairman General Emeritus, National Organization of Trade Unions. Currently, I'm the Chief Labor Affairs, External Labor Powerhouse. And briefly, I want to tell you about External Labor Powerhouse. After wide experience in labor and all the years I've worked as a worker for 27 years in the Civil Aviation Authority. Then I've been a leader of workers for 15 years in different positions until recently when I decided to leave the issue of NOTU and concentrate mainly on workers, and we registered an organization which is now going to ensure it bridges the gap between government, workers, and employers. And we are doing it in a way that we are trying to reorganize external labor, both those who are working outside Uganda, those who are even working here, and also bridge that gap between the union, the workers. Because we discovered that union are representing very few workers, and those are the members. And members are not more than 20%. Now, when you look at the workforce of about 12 million workers, and you have 1.2, then there's a very big gap. So that gap can be, we don't want any gap to be covered by anything, but by experienced people like me. So, first of all, I want to congratulate workers on this important day of Labor Day. Labor Day is a very important day where we commemorate and remember where we have come from, where we are, and where we want to go, especially for the workers. You remember in those 18-something when our forefathers, those who were taken like slaves, had a chance now to revolve and say, no, we should no more be treated like slaves. We are workers, we also contribute to the economy. We must be respected. And that's how ILO and other organizations picked it from there. And the workers were given full rights. And today is what we are trying to remember. And we want to thank those forefathers who actually struggled and brought labor into perspective, whereby government, workers, and employers can sit at a round table and discuss issue of workers and give them direction on how decent work can be achieved.
Thank you so much. You've given us a glimpse of what you're doing right now. Surely if someone talks about labor and work, your name is one of the names that someone would first think about. And I'm so glad that we had this opportunity to just discuss this on International Labor Day. You've also given us a brief history of where the labor history comes from in regards to the right and the forefathers that brought this together, which is very vital to the very first questions that I would like to ask. Personally, as a person, could you just let us know, define to us dignity of work in a Ugandan context, really, right now, today?
Dignity of work is, this is what I expect. When a worker comes to work, he has transport, he has meal, he has decent workplace. His work is respected. He has a voice where he can push his issue across and listen to. When he has grievances, can be addressed through the channel which has been put in place, mechanism which are very clear. Mutual respect, whereby employer, worker respect each other. It's not one way. Where you negotiate on a win-win, nobody is above the others. You create a level where at least there's channel of proper communication, where you can be able to communicate properly with your employer and employee, and then the government. Then you also respect the law, because there are several laws. There's the Employment Act, there's and others. Then there are there are incentives that a worker should get. When a worker is working, you expect to have social security, whereby employer saves for him 10%. His salary is deducted, 10% goes for, and preparing him or her for retirement. Those are some of the things that I would expect to dignify and bring a worker to a certain level.
Okay. It is very, very interesting how you've painted the picture, and it's very, when you look at it, that is really the ideal picture that should be going on. However, in the Ugandan situation, according to your experience, how is it like when you talk about workers' dignity?
I would say there's a lot of issues, and the issues ranging from we must have decent work,
right? And
decent work is what I've been trying to explain. But in the Ugandan context, we have a lot of challenges. That first of all, the workers themselves don't know their rights. And those are some of the things that we must fight as leaders. Now, from my own perspective, when I started working as a worker at the airport, I've been creating a level of making sure that we have decent work. And I want to tell you, go through it, how we have done it. We used to belong to Minister of Works by then, some years ago, in 1990s. So what happened when we went for training in Singapore, we found out that in Singapore, Civil Aviation Authority was the regulator in the country and was working independently from the Ministry of Labor or Ministry of Transport and so on. So when we came back here, we muted an idea. But when we were still in Ministry of Works, we were being exploited so much. The pay was, I remember, by the time I started working at the airport, I was getting about 3,000. And 3,000 was nothing. Now, at that time when you look at the airline, what they were earning much more than us. So what I did was we moved away from the ministry, and the government allowed Civil Aviation Authority in 1992. Then we were all absorbed, and we joined Civil Aviation Authority. When Civil Aviation Authority came in, by then I had started already advocating for workers' rights. So among ourselves as workers, we fought and began a workers' union and became one of the people who speak for the workers. Now, Civil Aviation Authority Workers' Union became so handy to the workers. We started advocating for decent work, and we put in place what we call collective bargaining agreement. One of the best in the country. Actually, Civil Aviation Authority today is the best paying organization in Uganda. It's because we set a base and set mechanism. We said we must have collective bargaining agreement, which is CBA, is negotiated between the management, the workers, and we come out with a document. And that document, which is like our Bible, is called the collective bargaining agreement. What is in that bargaining agreement? Make sure a worker comes, he has transport, he has lunch, he can be able to transport himself back to work, from home to work. You have decent accommodation, whereby you have house allowance, you have treatment, you have leave, and all those things we put in the collective bargaining agreement. And we said, if you come to work and you are recruited, the terms must be very clear. You are recruited as Owere, you are airport operations, you are supposed to do A, B, C, D. You are entitled for A, B, C, D. And when we put that in mechanism in place and we bound it together, then we both signed, that is the management and the leaders of the workers, and we all appended our signature. That is the document now both of us use. Even the mechanism on how disciplinary should take place, how you are disciplined. In case where you have done something which is not good, you are taken through a disciplinary action. And today, my sister, I want to tell you, I left a legacy in Civil Aviation Authority. Even if you ask any worker in Civil Aviation Authority, they are proud of what we have done. They are the best paid people. They have the best collective bargaining agreement in East Africa, even in Africa. And that is one of the things that I left there. I worked there for 27 years. And my 27 years as a worker there, we made sure we had what we call circle, where workers can come, borrow, and then take back. So we created an environment where you really feel you must be a worker. And that's the basis that I want other people to copy. So from after Civil Aviation Authority, they saw my potential, and the National Union for Transport Sector picked me, and I was elected as a national chairman. Now, the first thing we did was to empower the union. I found the union was limping, almost going to close. But by the time I came in, with the experience I have already placed at the Civil Aviation Authority, I lifted this with my colleagues whom were elected with, and I showed them direction. We remain focused on to build the union and empower it. Because when you empower the union, you empower the workers.
Right.
And then the workers themselves, you have to empower them to know their rights. So in Civil Aviation Authority, the workers, most of them, we had created awareness. Now we started with the transport sector. Now transport sector, where you have many other sectors who are coming together. And we played our part very well. We empowered the union because they used to go renting, they lacked respect from the employers. But with my experience, I built that and I brought them to limelight. And as we talk today, Amalgamated Transport and General Workers Union is one of the best unions in the country.
So, Mr. Owere, you have given us a background of where all this started. And we see actually you have been advocating for workers' rights from the word go, and we see exactly what motivated you in the sense that it started from where you were working. And right now we see that actually you set a very good foundation for other generations, specifically, especially where you started from, that is the Civil Aviation Authority, which is really good. Do you feel this movement of the National Organization of Trade Unions has actually gained strength over time, or it is losing momentum?
No, National Organization of Trade Union gained momentum, especially when I became the leader.
Yes.
Because I found it had a lot of other challenges, and there was not enough, I would call it awareness and publicity. But I gave it publicity, I gave it basis, I empowered it, and what came to first of all, by the time I took over, a union had nowhere to, they had no home. Secondly, it had only 20 unions affiliated to it. Now the 20 unions, and most of the workers were shunning, not knowing what is. You even ask somebody and he tells you, what is NOTU? Then we started slowly with the help of the media, and we brought it up to empower it and create awareness. Until we brought it on the limelight, we started identifying issues that affects workers. Because why NOTU is there is because of the workers. And because of the affiliates. Affiliates are those unions that are affiliated to it. And one of the affiliates was Amalgamated Transport and General Workers Union, which is where I come from. Now, when I was elected, we started identifying the issues that are affecting the workers. One of them was, we found that most of government workers are paid very low salary. We started with the teachers, we empowered teachers, we empowered other unions, and by the time I left, the unions had moved from 20 affiliates to 34. Today they are 38, because the leaders who are there have also added more. But the challenge that we have is that the recruitment because union is about numbers and membership and the awareness you create. Because the voice of the voiceless, one is put together, it can make a difference.
So the strength is in numbers.
The strength is in numbers. And that's where we are still building on.
Right.
And once we build on that, it will create even more impact, not just as a name as NOTU, but we want to see affiliates are how many. Each member of the union must have more members who are able to stand firm and advocate for the workers in the workplace, national level, and also what I would say is policies. There are so many labor policies that we must influence on behalf of the what? The workers.
Right.
Both at the workplace, national level, and even in the parliament.
Mr. Owere, there's a lot of benefit in joining labor unions, really. And like you've said, there is really power in the numbers. What is the biggest challenge, really, when it comes to bringing in the numbers?
The biggest challenge is most employers fear union. It's just fear. But I want to tell them in this program that union is the best. When you have a union in the workplace, it helps the checks and what? Balances. It will also create a way that it makes you work on things that you don't see. It gives workers a voice that you lift your workers to bring them to a certain level through their leaders. Now, the challenge, the biggest challenge, is the employers fear unions. They deliberately don't want workers to join the union. But that one can be sorted out. And those are some of the things which must now be, because the law stipulates that once a worker declares that I want to join the union, nobody, here employer, you are not supposed to. But sometimes you go to a workplace and you tell them, we want you to join the union. They tell you, I've not been allowed by my employer. The employer has no right, especially when your rights are is supposed to be given to you. The law gives you that right. Once you declare you want to join the union, the employer is just supposed to endorse and say, please join. And then you set a mechanism. How do we relate through the union? And once the union is in a place, it gives what? But we also have a challenge on our own side as a trade union, that some leaders, once they become on the chair, they want to remain there. They don't want anybody to come around. They now focus on something different from what they are supposed to do. Those are some of the challenges. The employer, the trade union leaders, ourselves, that we must open up for these workers to come in. By the time I came in NOTU, I found when there were many old people, and they had somehow kind of closed the union. When you come, at that time I was very young and vibrant. So when we came in, at first we got some resistance. These young people have come to take over, but those are some of the administrative challenges that we now overcome. We managed to overcome that, and I remember I started identifying the young people in different sectors. I even brought some. Now, we also have politics sometimes mingles with the issue of trade union. And once you mix that with the workers' issue, we'll lose focus. And those are some of the challenges that we have that we must correct.
Right.
Yes.
You've talked about some of the challenges, you talked about some of, especially the reason as to why this is very good for workers, but the numbers are not really coming up. During your leadership, or with NOTU, your experience basically. You've told us a little bit about some of the things that you did, especially from the beginning with civil aviation, which I consider those successes. I'll just want to know, in your opinion, what do you think what is your biggest victory for workers?
The biggest victory I made, I increased the voice of the workers in the country, from workplace to national level up to international level. That was number one. Number two, when I climbed at NOTU, I created positions. We changed the constitution and ensure that women have a voice. The youths, created a youth, then brought in more young people who actually made my work and the work of the national organization very, very, very vibrant. Then the third one is when we focused on teachers. Teachers were being paid very low salary, if you remember. And I had one-on-one interaction with His Excellency the President, meeting him, three of us, and I explained the problem of the teachers. That time teachers were getting, I don't even remember the amount they were getting. But we started by giving them 50%, which was put on in phases. At first they were paid 15%, 10%, and then the rest was paid. But before that, I told the president, look, you are now giving these people some money, but can you give them some money to have their circle? So he accepted and he started giving them. He said, Owere, I'm going to give them 55 billion in 5 years. And that was national NOTU. And he gave them 5 billion per year for 5 years. Now that money, that's why you see today they have what we call their circle, where they can go borrow money and then bring it back. And then they also started what? Well, they have one of the best and powerful circles in the country. So those are some of my achievements.
Right.
Not only that, National Social Security Fund. By the time I took over, there was a lot of problem in the NSSF. The scandals were scandals, every scandal here and there. So when I became the Chairman General with our friend Dr. Lyomoke, I made sure, first of all, we have two centers. We have COFTU, which is the Central Organization of Free Trade Union, and NOTU. I found when they were not working together, they were like jealousy co-wives. If you are talking to COFTU, you don't talk to NOTU. So we said no. Me and my Secretary General, we said no. This must stop. We are all focusing on it, fighting for the rights of the workers. The name NOTU and COFTU should not confuse us. Let's unite. So that time, it was very difficult when we go for Labor Days. You first have to fight who is going to speak. We corrected that by saying, if this year NOTU is speaking, it's next year COFTU can what? Speak. Then going to International Labour Organization also, we also corrected that. So we became friendly and working together. Now, when it came to NSSF issue, we combined ourselves and said, how do we save this National Social Security Fund? This is our money. The government does not even have even 1 shilling. So what we did was to say, advocate for governance. For me, I told the president, look, this is our money. We want to be on the board. I remember him asking me, Owere, how many people do you want? I said, no, we want 5. By then he told the vice president, Bukenya, he said, go Andy, I have no problem, go and sort out that with the workers. We went. I remember that time there was Suruma was the chairman, I think, board of directors. No, it was the Minister of Finance. And we had to cut the story short, to chase all the management team. And we brought in our people on the governance, that's the board, with the instruction to rebrand and bring sanity in NSSF. And I'm very proud today that from just a mere 1.7 trillion, today NSSF is proud to be having almost 20. What we did was I instructed the board members that they should sack those who were there and bring in new team. That's how people like Biarugaba, Jeridin, and so on were recruited, and the new team. And we also asked them to rebrand the NSSF. Today, NSSF is one of the best organizations in the country, both financially and is even supporting the government economically. So that is the power and what I have done for this country. So for me, those are some of my achievements. And I can even stand out there with my head up. Yeah. Now, recently, when we saw that the money has accumulated, workers were not feeling the impact of NSS. We said, no, this is our money. Why should somebody wait until you have clocked 50 years? Then they give you money. Now, with the COVID, when it came, it also gave us time to bargain. You know, each time something comes, it is an advantage. You use it to bargain.
Right.
So we engaged the government. We said, no, we must have some money. As you clock 45 years, and you have worked for 10 years, let you be given what? 20%. You start something, by the time you reach 50, and you are getting everything. Maybe you would have started something here. Now you just take off. And I want to thank the president. He allowed that after a long struggle. Because I don't want to go through the struggle I went through to succeed in that. It was not easy. The bill was first passed during Kadaga's time. When Speaker Olanya came, they also chased it and said no. That was taken by event. I remember calling a press conference when I was in Tororo. I had gone for a holiday. And when I just was watching TV and they were telling me now, what was passed in Parliament can no longer be what? I asked them, I said, I'm coming back to Kampala by Monday. This must be reviewed. And I want to thank the late Olanya, because by the time I came back to Kampala to have a meeting, he had arranged a meeting for me. I went with some of our MP, that's one Biakatonda and Sister Margaret. We had one-on-one with the speaker. We explained everything about our bill and brought the idea. And he rang the president when we were there. And he assured us he's going to bring the bill back and in a record time. And it was done. The bill was passed. And today, you can access your money when you are 45, you have worked for 20, you have saved for 10 years. So these are some of the things that we try and that is the power of the workers.
Right.
That is invested in a leader.
Very nice. Surely the power of workers invested in a leader. And it's a line of remarkable achievements, really. Yes. We are seeing the fruits of your leadership really being felt right now. And it's very important, really, to acknowledge that behind the scene, there are actually leaders that are actually putting something's foundations, and now everyone can actually enjoy the fruits of your leadership, which is remarkable. In your submission discussion, you talked a lot about engaging government. It is so much engagement, so much working together that is involved. I just want us to talk a little bit about the cost of living, because it's something that affects everyone. The workers feel the pinch really so much. We talk about rent, school fees, and all these other things that have really gone high. Do you think government can do more to help workers shield from the rising cost of living in Uganda?
Yes. First of all, we have economic gurus in this country. They should be thinking outside the what?
The box.
The box. Economically, workers are one of the people who are supposed to give vibe in the economic aspect of the country, both in terms of development, in terms of purchasing power. Because once you give a worker good amount of money, the purchasing power will go up. Even government itself will raise taxes in what they buy in the market, supermarket, and so on. So what is needed is market survey every now and then. One of the things that we are trying to do as a trade union, I think my predecessors may take it up, because I still relate with them, is we need to have researchers who have done economics, who can see what is there, how is the economy moving, and also interact with the planning authority, the Minister of Finance, and see how this can be tackled. I want to, there's a survey which External Labor Powerhouse is undergoing now. We found out that government has temporary workers. Those are tenants, the cleaners, the drivers, those low cadres. But do you know how much they give them? Let me show you. How much is this?
That's a 500 coin.
500 coin. This is what a government worker, those temporary workers, get. And I'm saying no. Actually, I'm going
500 shillings.
Yes, I'm going to meet the head of public service to discuss this with her. How do you give a temporary worker 5 shillings for lunch? Can this buy lunch?
No.
Can this transport you from
not at
workplace to, and then you give somebody 50,000 for housing? So these are some of the things we have undertaken research, and we are going to discuss with the government. You say, no, this is not correct. You have to do something.
All right.
And it's the government to set base for other employers to see.
Exactly.
Because if the government knows that you're a government, you're paying your worker this amount of money for a meal, then what do you expect? Can you go and say, why are you mistreating a worker? So that is economically where we should take what? The workers' issue.
Right.
Yes.
What would you tell workers out there, especially workers that feel that their hard work does not match their lifestyle or their way of living?
One thing I want to advise workers, and this is my practice.
Right.
When I was working on the Civil Aviation or Ministry of Works, my salary was not enough. But what I did was, I had my camera, I used to photograph places to bring more income, apart from what? More salary. When do you get your salary? What do you do with your money? How do you make it more profitable? Because by now, when I saw that my wife is a teacher by profession, but I saw her being exploited. I told her, you know, our bedroom is our boardroom. So when we were in our bedroom, we said, now, you're a teacher, qualified teacher. What can we do? You have made a name. You know, sometimes it's very difficult for you, like my sister, you have your name. You are now a media person. You have your talent. How do you identify your talent and use it to do for you some other thing? Because for me, when I discovered my talent, that I'm a good negotiator, that's what gave me all this time to climb. Because I would come, negotiate for them, come out with something tangible, they see the results, and then they say, now go ahead and do this. So I'm advising workers out there, identify your talent. Have discipline. Involve yourself in the daily activities. If you are working in an organization, how many hours do you give organization? How many hours do you give yourself? And then you can be able to prosper. Because don't just stay in one job. You are there and you cannot remain creative, but in a more lawful. My wife, when I talked to her, she said, but what can we do? I said, no, you're called Evelyn. When I come to your school, everybody is calling you Teacher Evelyn, Teacher Evelyn. That's already a brand. Can we start something? We started a school in our garage. I said, where do we get children? I said, no, the children will come. We started with our house girl, other children from the neighborhood, about five children. When people saw, they said, Teacher Evelyn has opened the what? A nursery school. And that's how we started. Today, we have a full-fledged primary school. We have nursery section and primary section. But this is how a worker should identify their talents and prosper in that line.
Right. It's very important there. Identification of talent and then using your talent to actually prosper and make life worthwhile, really. There's so many Ugandans that are living out of the informal sector. Actually, they're working out of the informal sector. We're talking about the borders, the vendors, and all this. How are they being left out? The labor protection. How can you actually help them? How can we help them not to be left out of labor protection?
One of my achievements in labor movement is I brought the formal sector on board in the union, transport union, where I was the national chairman. You remember the borders, the taxes. You were hearing how they were fighting each other. We managed to bring them as a informal sector into the union. And we created a structure for them where they have leadership, they they elect their leaders through, they started as we started with the, at Entebbe. They have what they call SCADA. Then we have now UTUF. UTUF is now the umbrella body, which brings all these taxes together. In the markets also, we are trying to create leadership among those informal sector. And now we have allowed them to join the union. Now, join the union, it is when we were in the International Labour Conference about 2016, it was agreed that countries should come from a formal sector now to formal. And formal by making sure we create avenue, bring these workers together, allow them have their leadership, allow them join the union. Those who don't have union, they have associations where they can be reached. Now the government efforts now should also come in handy to help them organize themselves. Now we have gone digital. These are some of the things that we need to work out and bring this informal sector from informality to formal. And then even government will be able to raise taxes, can be able to bring services closer to them when they have structure in place. Right. So what is very important is creating structure among those. Government have now built markets, I think in 20 or 22 districts, including my district of Tororo, Entebbe, where I stay. They have very formidable market. Now, how do you organize those workforce in that market? Those are workers. So you need to organize them into a workforce where they have a structure. And once they have a structure, they become formal. Instead of leaving them work out, walk anyhow. And this is very easy. So the government has that, but must work together with the other stakeholders, like us.
Right.
Yes.
Power in collaboration really is what you're highlighting there, I see. So we have now a category of workers, especially in this day and era, the gig workers, the ones that we see on online apps, deliveries, that is really, really very common nowadays, especially with the young people that have embraced the digital world, and they're using it to do their work very, very well, actually. Tell me, is there a need really for new legal framework to protect these workers?
Surely, that is very, very important, because these workers who are working digital, there's nothing that binds them. You get on your phone in your house and you ask for something so there must be protection.
Right.
Both legal and also in terms of labor, because those are workers, but until you put in their mind that they are also workers, though you are self-employed, but you have some mechanism that will protect you. Now, in those digital world, there's a lot of fraud going on. Somebody can call you now and tell you this. By the time you realize, you're already conned. So those are some of the things we need a legal framework, and then the union should also come in handy to try to bring digital unionization in this. And that one can be discussed and can be rebranded so that the digital world, not only the digital world, are you aware that there are people who are now busy manufacturing robots? Those are some of the things we should think outside the box.
Right.
The world is evolving every day. Today you woke up and you find something totally. During those days when you used to walk, go and walk distance to go and call through the call box and so on. Today you only get your phone and get what you want. So we should now think ahead. Each time you are thinking, you think ahead of that. But I'm happy. I was during this OSH 28th, I visited the Uganda Industrialization Research Organization, where is head by Dr. Kwesiga. And we learned a lot how creative that research institute is all about. In fact, I would like you to get in touch. I will give you his address. You go and interview that gentleman. He has a very, very rich history. These are people, I don't know how President Museveni, where he got him. I think they studied together in Entare. Then he was one of the people who were in prison at 23. Wow. But when he tells you what he went through during Amin's time and so on, and where he has reached, it's a very rich story. But I will give you the number. Those are the people who should come up and tell their story. And also, we use that Uganda Industrial Research Institute to change the mindset of our people in terms of technology. For us, we are also doing something, as in the videos. That one I will tell you for Tororo, because I want Tororo to develop. But for this one, we have now Uganda Industrial Research Institute, headed by Kwesiga. It's a very powerful organization that will help even the workforce of Uganda to change their mindset and talk about this digital thing and so on. Right. So that we can change and bring something tangible to our people.
Something tangible to our people really is what is needed, especially in this point in time. When we talk about International Labour Day, when we talk about workers in Uganda, we can't really not speak about the national minimum wage. Now, despite years of debate, time and again, we have seen this has not come to realization. Why do you think that is so?
You know, minimum wage is one of the things that has given me the worst headache. In fact, some people one time nicknamed me minimum wage because of the advocacy. All the time we are discussing that and talking about it. What is minimum wage? Minimum wage is a basic pay that is given to somebody who is, that is the start pay that can be given to somebody who is vulnerable, who is supposed to get that like a security, and it is something that binds employer and employee. And it's the first basic pay that every country would want to have, so that you don't allow people to come and set things for you. Like you have a house, somebody to come and clean it for you. But there was a problem of lack of, I shouldn't say lack of political will, but the president, in my interaction with him, he has always said, we go step by step. Sometimes I become impatient with him, but that is his opinion. That is his view. He was saying, let's first have factories, have more people, then we'll talk about minimum wage. But for us, we are saying, no, let's have sector by sector minimum wage. We fought very hard to the extent of bringing in our member of parliament, Renate Rakajara, who actually put in place a minimum wage bill, and it was passed in parliament by 10th parliament. But when he reached the president, of course, he didn't sign. Now, there was, for us, we saw when we were both working on minimum wage with the Minister of Labor, but we saw Minister of Labor going very slow. So we said, let's go ahead of them. We took it to Parliament, we created awareness, and everybody supported us. That bill passed. It was taken to the president up to today. But I'm happy to inform the workers that in recent meeting with the workers, the president now has endorsed and says, let there be minimum wage. And that's a big relief for me. And we need now to take it from there, organize and see if we can create minimum wage sector by sector. What do I mean by sector by sector? Those in agriculture can have their minimum wage. Those in education, those in factories, and so on, depending on how. And from the market research, which is supposed to be done by Minister of Labor, Gender and Social Development.
Right.
And also create a minimum wage board that will spearhead that. But for me now, I'm happy because there was no political will. Now the political will has arrived. You know, when the president says, I endorse, and I even saw his tweet himself as said, now I endorse minimum wage. Lubangantie, Werenity.
Indeed.
Because this thing has been bothering me for very many years. It's one of the things that I was feeling I've not yet achieved for the workers, and it was haunting me.
Right.
But I'm happy that my efforts have now come to what? To pass. When a head of state comes out and say, I endorse, Your Excellency, Lubangatie.
Indeed, Lubangatie. Let's dive a little bit more about your leadership and your experience, really. When we talk about workers, we know that Mr. Owere's name comes up. You have fought for workers' rights. You're the helm of leadership of NOTU for over a decade. And so there's a lot, really. But I just want to know, what lessons can the future union leaders learn from, really, your experience, if you think?
That's a tough one. You said what? What do they learn from?
Lessons
What
do
lessons?
you think future union leaders can learn from your leadership?
First of all, to be resilient, focused, and trustworthy. You don't go to employer, tell something else, you come to workers and tell them something
else.
For me, when I'm going to negotiate for you, I go in and I take what you have told me to say, and I say it as you have given me. And then, if we are going for win-win, I will go back, consult, come back, and bring what? Those are the things that must be. Trustworthy is something very, very important. How you behave, how you deliver, how you do things, and of all, if you feel what I have, you should also have. And may I have what we call positive jealousy. Positive jealousy is what, when I see you with a new car, I don't curse you. I also wish to have even a better car or a better suit than yours. Now, we must be clear in when we are discussing issues of the workers. What the leaders must learn from me is mobilizing workers to join the union, having more membership in collective bargaining, negotiating with the management without fear or favor. I'm a very good friend of the president, but when it comes to workers' issue, I stand before him firmly and I put position of the workers as it is. And that is what I want other leaders to learn from me.
Right.
I also want leaders to see how things work out, especially when it comes to when things are very hot. I'll give an example. One time we declared a strike because government was not listening to us. But there was a lot of pressure calling us names. They can even call you a rebel. But you remain firm and articulate the issue that affecting workers. You don't allow politics to overshadow, bring in, because you see sometimes when people see you fighting for a right cause, they also want to position themselves to bring their what? Their interest. So that now they pass through your what? But for me, I have, in all throughout my work, if I'm pursuing the incentive or the increment of salary for the teachers, that's what I position. Any other forces that try to come in, to try to bring in, I discard them. And that's how I have managed to have whatever I want.
Mr. Owere, how can the average worker get involved in shaping the national labor policies in Uganda?
The only way is for workers to join the associations. The more we have members of the union, the more government will listen. One time in 2022, the president challenged me, said, Owere, go in that microphone. Tell me how many are you? I told him 1.5. Said, now look at him. 1.5. When you have a workforce of over 25 million or 12 million and you have 1.5, you see, nobody will take you seriously. Now, this message is mainly for the young people. The young people think the union are for the old people. That is not true. Union is where every power of the workers starts from. The more you empower it, the more it will create sanity for the workers. So the working population should now find a way how they can empower their own unions. In every sector, there are unions. Teachers, they have different. We used to have one union, but now you have liberal teachers union, you have science teachers, you have now NOTU, which was original, then you have, there are so many. Now, when you come to Amalgamated Transport and General Workers Union, where I have experience and built, those workers have emerged out of coming together. And that is the lesson I want other workers to understand. And as young people, there are those who have not yet got jobs. But jobs can be created when the country is thinking for the labor. And how do you bring that? By reminding them all the time, government must do this, because it is their role. I know other private organizations are more than that, but still, once we are united, we can overcome most of the challenges.
All right. I want you to give a word to a young man out there, a young person out there who is just joining the workplace in Uganda of today. Give them a word or two, because they are so full of hope, enthusiastic, but not so sure of what lies ahead.
The workers, those who have just joined the workforce, first of all, identify your potential, who you are, identify your talent. Now, cooperate, associate, ensure you identify with the people who can take you to another level. And that is very important. Me, I even talk to my children. I'm happy my children, most of them, are now working. There are those who have just finished university, but they are still looking for a job. But the most important is identify your talent. Make sure you are loyal to your workplace, to your supervisors, and discipline is very key in whatever you are doing. Discipline will take you a mile. For me, what has brought me to this level is because of discipline and respect for my supervisors, and also identifying my talent. And another thing, trying my level best to live within my means. That's very key.
Very important there. Mr. Owere, you've talked to the President of Uganda several times at different occasions and different situations. I wonder, what would you tell the President at this point in time? Let's just say today, what would be that word that you would actually tell the President on behalf of the workers of Uganda?
Let him remain friend of workers, because workers are the engine of development in the country. And let him remain listening. He's a good listener, by the way. President is a good listener. Let him remain listening to the workers. And once in a while, some of us who are here, we can still advise him on areas of labor so that this country can develop. And I also want to thank him for promoting industrialization. Let him continue, actually, Your Excellency, the President, continue promoting industrialization. What I've seen at the Uganda Industrialization Research Center gives me a lot of hope that this country can develop. There are people he's promoting, like now, do you know that we are manufacturing buses here in Uganda? Those are some of the things. So by doing that, we can create jobs. And once more jobs are created, the other day when I was talking to him, he was talking about PDM, how he can create more jobs and even more people can. We want those things actualized. And some of us are ready to work with him and transform this country to another level.
Finally, you could actually just tell us, what is your prayer or hope for the Ugandan workers in this Asian era?
My prayer, first of all, the employers, they should know that to make money, you need a worker. And once a worker is there for you, you also be there for a what? For a worker. the country can only develop when we are all eating. The Baganda have a saying, even in my language, Japadola, ngat mechiemo, achiemo makadho. Onalia, nonalia, yemere kolache, egenda. So, our economy should be structured in a way that workers benefit somebody who brings labor, and then with somebody who brings what? Money, so that we are in the equal footing. Lastly, for the migrant workers, we are going to revive, review, and ensure that our workers who go out when they are skilled. We are tired of only taking house girls. The training centers of these places must now improve and must be put to a certain level so that we are able to compete with the world. When we know Philippines is bringing in skilled workers, Uganda should also bring skilled workers. Not just go there and then people are trafficked. All those things, we want to see them erased.
Well, thank you so much, really, Mr. Owere. It has been such a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for giving us all those highlights and very insightful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
Well, thank you so much. It has been nice having you on the Weekend Edition. My name is Nora Sende, and in respect of the International Labour Day, we have been discussing the cost of living and the crisis of wages in Uganda. And I hope you have, borrowed a leaf or two. It takes two to tango, really. The workers need the employers as much as the employers need the workers. And so mutual respect, one voice will actually take all of us a long way. Until next time, I'll see you next Sunday. I am Nora Sende. Good evening.